Well, hello, my survivor friends. This is Laurie Smith. This is a Survivor Weekend check-in video that I'm doing. And I'm just doing it early today because I've got things I want to do. And I've got things that I have to do. I'm attending an ASCA, Adult Survivors of Child Abuse More Center program. I'm attending a training session today. I did last Saturday as well. So I had to broadcast early. And it's three Saturdays in a row. So they're just going over the training for the meetings, how they operate, and I've done them before 3 years ago anyway, and now I'm reviewing all of it because I'm going to start a group again. So with the ASCA Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, so I'm doing the training. So that's why this show is early this morning, and also I've got some things that I've got to get done this morning. So I thought I'd do this show early, and really, I mean, I'm just being an honest abuse survivor, on here, and just, giving people an idea, for survivors of abuse, that you're not alone, that we all struggle, even people that were not abused struggle. And so, yeah, I'm just willing to be honest. And, I've had a horrible day yesterday, actually, was just sort of grieving my husband's loss, probably because Valentine's Day is coming. And so, in the back of my mind, that's always there. And he passed away in 2018, August 2018. So it's been a few years. This August will be 3 years since he passed away. So yesterday I was having a sad day. I was just really down and just missing him. He was my best friend and he was my best supporter, and I just loved him so much. And so I had a rough day, and had some friends reach out to me. I told them, I wasn't having a great day, and they were very kind and helpful and reached out to me, which was nice. And I just allowed myself to feel the feelings and just, cry and just, allow this stuff to come out. Because if you don't, then, if I don't do that, then what happens is I stuff it, and then it becomes anger, or it becomes, something else that's not healthy, right? So I just allowed myself to have a sort of a sad day. By the evening, last night, I was feeling a little bit better just because I was able to get some of that out that I needed to. And just some of the grieving work I've been working on. Well, I've been doing pretty good for the last year and a half, I'd say. The first year and a half was hard. And but this last year and a half hasn't been too bad. But every now and then I have a day where it's just horrible. But yeah, these things are tough, and they really are hard. Sometimes we don't have anybody, in our lives who is close to us that can actually be with us when we're having these sort of horrible days. We're on our own, We do need to be good to ourselves. We do need to be kind to ourselves and find out what works for us, to pull us out of those pits of kind of, if we're starting to sink into a depression or these types of things, we have to find what works for us to get us out of that. I know for myself, I love music, and I'm learning to play the guitar. And I haven't played live for anybody yet, but one day I probably will. But I love the guitar, and I've been learning for almost, a little over 3 years. And so I'm still a beginner, but I really love it. And so what I did was I made myself a nice supper, and instead of just staying in bed crying the blues yesterday because missing my husband, I thought, no, I've got to pull myself out of this, So I had a nice supper, and I watched one of my favorite movies, and then I did some guitar study. And so these are the things that, we need to find what works for us. You need to find what works for you, because it really did help. By last night, I was feeling pretty good. And a friend of mine actually checked in with me just before she was going to go crash for the night, and she's like, "Are you doing okay? And how are you?" And I'm like, I'm actually better tonight than I was. And it's really nice to have friends that will be there to support you. And I'm really blessed that I do have so many wonderful friends, and people that actually care about me, which is really important. So many people don't have anybody that cares about them, and that's sad, but it's true. And that's why you got to find good friends and maintain those relationships, because it's hard to find a good friend that actually cares. It really is. Sometimes we have friends in our life, they don't really care that much. But I've got really good friends that actually really care. And that's awesome. So yeah, I just wanted to talk today. I just do these shows because I care about people. And I know there's so many survivors out here who are hurting and struggling and going through their own troubles. And we're all in different places. We've all suffered different things. And we're all in different situations now. And it's like, but the one commonality that we do share is that we were abused as children. And so I just like to be a sort of a source of encouragement for people. There's going to be hard times. There's going to be hard days. Obviously, you can't get through this life without that going on, because life is stressful for the most part. Sometimes we coast a little bit. In my lifetime, I've coasted a little bit for a few years, and things seem good, and then all of a sudden they're not good anymore. And I'm like, well, I was just starting to relax and starting to, enjoy this, situation, and then now I'm back into the stressful stuff, right? That's life. It's just life. That's how it goes, and it's hard. So we have to learn how to navigate, through that stuff. I had a situation come up the day before yesterday, which probably set this whole trigger off with my husband, of hearing people saying that they don't care about children being abused and they don't care. It's not their problem. It really, if you want to say it that way, okay, it's really not. But to me, that just puts me right back to the abuse, because my mother used to say she didn't care. My mom was my main abuser, and she didn't care what she did to me. She didn't care that she busted my head open. She didn't care that my brother raped me. She didn't care. She never wanted me in the first place. I meant nothing to her. And so that when I hear people say stuff like that, or I see that in a comment or whatever, that just brings me right back to the feelings of anger and rage. I'm like, why don't you care? What kind of a human being are you that you don't care? Nobody that I want to know, that's for sure. Because I do care, and I think that everybody should care. But they don't, and you can't force people to care. And, nobody can force my mom to care. She should have been arrested. Both of my parents, they were arrested, but they should have been convicted. Um, you know, they were court ordered to get counseling, but the courts didn't feel that the abuse was life-threatening, so they left us in the home. And that's why kids are ending up in body bags, right? And little babies. So yeah, I do care. And I don't care about the people that don't care. So there you go. That's just me. I think that we should care. If you're a human being, a real human being on the planet, you should care. If you're just a monster abuser, well, then you probably don't care. Right? That's the issue. So there's always those types. And I'm just like, whatever. And then, so that kind of triggered the whole thing, set me off, got me a little bit angry. And then just knowing that I had a dream about my husband, so that it was a really good dream. We were at a store shopping, and he was picking up a bunch of stuff, putting it in the basket, and he was like, "Oh, we'll get this for the apartment. We'll get this." And I was looking at all this stuff, and he was like right there, and I could literally just touch him. He was right there. So it was a great dream, but I think that triggered out the whole thing of me being sad yesterday. And then I popped on my YouTube channel, and I saw a comment that I thought was really, I want to bring up and mention here today, because this comment was an average comment that I've seen quite often. And that's like, "Oh, you're just harboring the abuse. You're just hanging on to it. Let it go. I let my abuse go, and you should just let yours go. You're just harboring it. You're just, milking it," sort of thing, right? And I'm thinking, I've heard that before. Like, no, that person probably doesn't think, that person who wrote that comment probably thinks they're the first person that's ever said that to me. It's like, excuse me, I'm like 55. I've heard that many times. And, it's like, the issue is I just ignore comments like that, really, for the most part. I don't even respond. But the thing is we as survivors of abuse may have that happen to us. You may not, but I know most people have, and they usually get a little upset about it. But the thing is we're all different. See, we've all been through different things. Like for me, I can't just let it go. And the reason being is that I have memories that still come around, and they're still there, and it still hurts. You know what I mean? I've got memories of the CSA child sexual abuse that I suffered as a child, being raped as a child, and I still have those memories. And if I stuff them, then I end up back where I started before, which was not dealing, and then it becomes a real problem because then I want to commit suicide, you know. So I'm dealing with my stuff the best way that I can, and I'm actually getting help and reaching out, which is what I've been doing for a long time now, and it is making a huge difference. But it's not something you just get over. Lots of things will trigger me. Something I see on TV, something I look at somewhere, or read an article, um, just calendar dates, just thinking about um, birth dates, all sorts of things will come up. Times of the year, like I said, calendar dates. That's a big one for survivors of abuse. Certain times of the year, summer, winter, right? So these things can trigger survivors of abuse, and then which then brings back memories, unpleasant memories, and then they have to deal with them. Right? And so I used to stuff them. That's the issue. I mean, I used to stuff all that stuff down. I call it putting it into a drawer, shutting the drawer and putting the key away, because that just made sense to me. But actually, it's just stuffing it down so you don't have to think about it, don't have to deal with it. And you can just pretend that everything's okay. Yeah, I don't mind that, all this abuse happened to me. No, that's just not true, and that's not reality. The issue is then I have to learn how to face this stuff in a manner that is a healing manner and not a self-harming manner, right? Or hurting somebody else. Right? And so, there's a lot of people like that. And the thing is some people may be able to just walk on. That's the issue. We've all been through different things. Right? And we've all suffered different things. We all handle things differently. We're all different. So I ignore people like that. I'm like, whatever. You know what I mean? Just mosey on. Have a good life. I wish you all the best. That's all I can say. I really do, from the bottom of my heart. I don't wish anything bad on anybody. The issue is those comments are so, I don't know. To me, it's kind of silly. It's like I'm going to go comment on somebody's stuff and say, just get over it. Can't you just get over it? You should just be like me. It's like, it's none of my business. The issue is if you're not going to support somebody, don't bother. If you can't say something supportive, don't say anything at all. I don't. If I see something that I don't like, which I don't like everything, I'm not going to be one of these people who says I like everything. I don't like a lot of stuff, but I don't comment negative comments on their stuff. I just leave it alone. I'm like, hey, I'll pray for you guys, whatever. Even if I'm not saying that, and I'm like, oh, good for you. You know what I mean? I don't make a derogatory negative comment because I'm not an asshole. That's why. If I'm going to make a positive comment that's going to be encouraging, then I'll do that. You know what I mean? I'll say, oh, keep up the great work, or I'm glad you could heal from that. But I'm not going to sit there and run somebody down and try to tell them they should do what I've done. It's like, give me a break. Like I'm really give a shit what anybody thinks. I really don't. I came on here to do this stuff to be a supporter for people who just need a friend, just need to know that they're not alone and that they didn't deserve that. Hi Lou, how are you? I hope you're well. Yeah, that's true. I think you're right. I think people do say things like that because they aren't dealing with it themselves, and they think that they have, you know what I mean? And so they're kind of in denial. It is a form of denial, but whatever works for people, right? I mean, we're all in different stages in our healing journey. Some never start their healing journeys because it's too much, it's too hard, and they just can't. I know people like that. My sister's like that, and so it's not uncommon. And the thing is they're just saying that because I don't know, they're trying to be helpful. It's kind of like, okay, if that's your idea of help, well, that's fine, whatever. That's why I'm saying I don't get all, really all that upset by it, but I just ignore it because I'm like, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, buzz off. But I do appreciate the kind words. I've had so many people drop comments that are really special to me, and they do mean a lot to me. So I appreciate the support. And like I said, I'm just out here to be a support. I'm not a professional psychotherapist. You know what I mean? I'm working on my healing journey. Studied this stuff a lot because I've had an ASCA group going before, had to do the training. Now I'm doing it again. Kind of understand the whole idea of peer support. So basically, that's what I'm doing here. It's just peer support. It's not, this is not professional support. This is what you call peer support. I'm just talking to survivors of abuse as you might talk to a friend sitting across the counter. And that's how they ASCA kind of runs their group, except for they don't comfort in those groups. Those groups, you're not allowed to make comments that are comforting or anything like that. Basically, you're allowed to affirm what they've said. So you can affirm their shares, you can affirm what they've gone through. You can say, "Oh, you've been through a lot, and thank you for sharing." But you can't try to comfort them or try to psychoanalyze what their comment was, because they may take that. It just may be not what they need to hear that day. So basically, that's not allowed. So I mean, but I do appreciate all the nice comments that I've gotten on my videos. I really do, and the support is nice for sure. And so I just I get a sort of a negative comment every now and then, but it doesn't bother me because I'm like, look, if you don't want to watch my stuff, like I say in all my videos, if topics of abuse bother you, I'm talking about abuse, why are you watching it? I'm like, seriously, I don't watch stuff about gangs and rap and what's that called? Rapping music, like rap and all that. I don't watch that because it's just not my interest level. I have no interest in gangs and rap and all that. And I'm into guitar and I love rock and roll and I love classical music. Things that are I like that kind of guitar music. I'm not really into a lot of different kinds of music. I'm into some, but the thing is I don't watch stuff that I don't like. For instance, I don't watch extremely gory movies because my childhood was pretty gory and pretty evil. So I don't watch that stuff because it bothers me. But other people do, and I'm not going to run them down for watching that. Like, if you want to watch that, go ahead. I'm not going to sit there and say you shouldn't watch that. You know what I mean? I don't watch that. It's like, who cares? You watch it. You know what I mean? But I don't watch it. I don't expect other people to watch my stuff if they're not interested in just kind of listening to what I have to say. Just try to be an encouragement for people out here who are suffering and struggling. If you're not suffering and struggling and you haven't been abused, why are you watching my stuff? I do have a lot of child protective services workers, people that are interested in stopping and preventing child abuse. I have a lot of those people watching my stuff because they're interested to see what an adult survivor of abuse is honestly going to say about their life and how difficult it is for survivors of abuse. And just giving one example, just giving my example, right? So I do have those people watching my shows, and I also have survivors of abuse watching my shows. And so I can't figure out why anybody else would want to watch my shows unless they care about children and care about people who've been abused. So it's kind of like, I always say, if it doesn't pertain to you, you don't have to watch it. Like, that's just the issue. It's like, I don't watch stuff that I'm not into. You know what I mean? Like, I don't comment on their stuff. Well, go over and find somebody's video about gangster rap and be like, running that person down. It's like, no, I just don't watch it because it's not interesting to me. I have no interest in it. So, I just do these kind of as a peer support thing, because I figured, hey, I don't know how much time I've got in this world, and I don't have a whole lot of time to try to do something to make a difference in this mass. I don't have hardly any money. Like I'm broke all the time. I'm just like a poor person, really. And, I can't even get a job now. It's been over a year. It's been 14 months since I've had a job. And I've been looking, let me tell you, I've got applications out there. Nobody cares. So the issue is like, at some point I may not be able to do these. And so I thought, while I've got the time and I've got the energy and the internet, I'm going to try to do stuff that will make a difference for people so that they'll know that they're not alone and to reach out. And if they don't want to reach out, get a self-help book, whatever. Just don't struggle on your own. It's so sad. It's such a hard place to be. I know, because I was there. And so that's kind of why I do these shows. It's not to be. It's not really supposed to be a show. It's just I used to do blog talk radio shows. That's what they call those blog talk radio shows. Blog Talk Radio. I did that for 10 years. So I just got used to calling it a show. It's an intimate chat, really, is what it is. And, if people aren't interested, don't watch. You know what I mean? That's fine with me. I personally, it doesn't matter to me because I'm going to be gone here in a few years, and this stuff it'll still be here. And what I'm hoping is that people will run into it and see it, and it will make a difference in their life. And they will realize that they do count, they do matter, that they never should have gone through what they were put through. They never should have had to be abused in any way. It's not okay. They may have other people telling them that they deserve that, especially family members are quite often saying things like that, and or somebody that knows the situation. Oh, well, you just deserve to be treated like that. I've actually had people tell me that in my family, so I know it's actually kind of common. I've heard other abuse survivors talk about it too. And so many times survivors of abuse just don't have support, and it's hard to find friends that actually understand, you know what I mean, and care. It's hard to find people that can help us, And so this is why I did these shows. And also to be a public message for people who care about children and want to see child abuse stopped, that they can actually see the aftermath of just one person's honest story. And that's why I wrote my books. And my books, I donate all the money for those books because I don't make much off of them. If I was to actually accept the money, it'd be like $8 a year or something like that. So what I do is I take that $8 and I donate it because I don't want it. It's not, to me, it's like I didn't write the books for money. I wrote them to just be a voice out here so that child abuse doesn't get swept under the carpet as it always does. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to write my truth, and I don't care who likes it. I don't care who's got to say what about it. It's out there. And, I'm going to keep talking about this because I don't want child abuse to be shoved back under the carpet because people just love to shove it under the carpet. Nobody wants to deal with it. Well, because it's like, it's a mess. How do you deal with it? It's not okay. There's nothing okay about it. My mom used to say it was her right to do what she was doing to me. She'd be like, it's my right to kill you. No, it wasn't. It wasn't her right to kill me. It's like, okay, if you want to say that, as an adult, if I could sit across the table from my mother right now and I could say, okay, you said it was your right to kill me. I'd say, well, sure, you could go ahead and you could have killed me, but then you should have done time. And I would say a life sentence. You know what I mean? It's so ridiculous that people think they have the right to do this to children. But they do. They think they've got that right. Some of them actually get away with it. My parents did. And the thing is that there's many, many others that get busted, thank God. Every time I see a child abuse headline where the abusers are busted and getting sentenced and whatnot, I'm like, yes. You know what I mean? Because it makes me angry because usually there's a dead child involved. Well, that could have been me. Could have been a lot of us. I just happened to survive. So the issue is my grandmother killed one of her sons. My mom's mom. See, my mom was abused by a horrific woman. That's why I'm sure that was half of my mom's problem. The other half was that she was being abused by my dad, right? So the issue is there's no excuse for abuse. I'm not going to excuse her behavior because she was abused. The issue is that my grandmother killed one of her sons and got away with it. She just buried him in the backyard. No problem. Beat him to death and he died. And oh well, just bury him. Beat the other children too. So I hated my grandmother, and I met her a few times, and I hated her guts. At least I'm honest. And I told her to her face, I'm not having anything to do with you. I don't think I told her I hated her because she had a big cane and she would have probably beat me over the head with it. But the thing is I told her I was not having nothing to do with her. I wasn't going to listen to her and I wasn't going to talk to her. And I was like, 10 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old. I just met her in those for a few weeks when I was young. But I actually hated her, and I still do. And I think that's okay. I think it's proper not to love somebody who killed their own son and think that's fine and abuse the rest of her children, the many children. My mom was like oldest of 7. I'm the youngest of 7. So my mom was the oldest of 7, and she tried to protect her siblings. She took a lot of abuse because my grandmother would be going to beat on my mother and on the little kids. My mom was the oldest, so she'd be beating on the younger kids, with a horse whip, with big sticks. She was just a horrible, horrible woman. And my mom would take the punishment. She'd say, "Don't beat on them, beat on me if you're going to beat on somebody." So my grandma would. So yeah, no love for my grandmother whatsoever. Actually hate her, and she suffered a horrible death, and I was actually really happy. I was like, good, because that's what you deserve. She got away with murder. She did no time. She got to hurt her children, all of them, and some orphans from down the street, from down the road at the orphanage that it was overflowing. So she took them in, abused them too. Right? This was back in the 1930s, early 1930s. So anyway, I hated that woman. I'm glad she's dead. But anyway, my mother, she said it was her right to kill me while she's beating me, half to death. And then I've got people telling me, why don't you just get over it? Just let it go. It's like, oh, if it was that easy, I would have let it go a long time ago. The issue is it's not that easy. And we're all different, like I said. So when you have somebody, if you have somebody tell you that, don't pay any attention to those negative people in your life that are telling you stuff like that. You need to find out what's best for you. And don't let anybody, including me, talk you into doing anything. The only thing I try to talk people into doing is staying alive. I'm like, reach out. You can't cope. Call a crisis line. If you think you can't make it for like 2 more minutes, call a crisis line, because we don't deserve to die a horrible death after being abused just because of what somebody did to us, which is what I was going to do. 2 of my brothers did that. They took their own lives and killed themselves. I was going to do that too. One of my sisters was going to do that. And so, suicide was just a problem in our family. But the issue is I'm glad I stuck it out. Because like I said, every day that I wake up is a slap in my abuser's faces. Yeah. Because I'm still here and I have good days. I have more good days than bad days. See, I used to have more bad days than good days. Now I've got more good days than bad days. So I'm happy. And, I have the odd bad day, like I was talking about here earlier. Something will come up, and especially if it's something just sad in my life, like my husband passing away, or if I'm not feeling good, if I just got over getting over cancer and all sorts of things, high blood pressure that was stroke level for a year. So I'm just getting back in there and starting to feel a little bit better. I've had a difficult few years, but the thing is I have more better days than bad days, and it's good to be on this side of it. It didn't used to be there. So that's what I'm telling you. If you can't cope and you can't, you don't know how you're going to do it, you need to make the best decision for yourself and get help. And get some good people in your life who are going to treat you right, and get some good friends that are going to be there for you, and get some good support, whether it's a counselor or whatever you need, self-help. I mostly did self-help and support groups because that's what I liked, and it really helped me out. And but whatever you need, don't let anybody tell you what you need. You do some internal thinking about what you need. Start writing some notes down. What do you need? What do you need in your life that's going to help you? And write it down so that you don't forget. And start working on checking off the list. I need supportive friends. Get some supportive friends. I need to get rid of the negative, abusive friends. Get rid of them right away. I need support. Start looking for some resources. You know what I mean? Like whatever it is. But we do not deserve to be treated like a big pile of shit after coming from being abused. Excuse my language, but I really have had a horrible couple of days. So I'm just going to be real here. And I'm like, don't let anybody dump on you as an adult. You're a survivor of abuse. That doesn't mean you should take more abuse from anybody, even people who are trying to be supportive. Oh, you need to do this, you need to do that. You need to just let it go. Forgive and forget, move on. That's what I did. That's what I hear all the time. And I'm like, well, good for you. I'm like, I'm glad for you. That's wonderful. Now leave me alone. I'm doing my thing and I'm getting better. Hallelujah. So whatever works for you. See, what works for me may not work for you. What works for you may not work for me. But the issue is whatever works, grab a hold of it and use it to get better every day, every day, every day, every day. You know what I mean? Because, we can do this. I know so many people have survived horrific abuse that are, struggled and struggled and struggled just like me. And yet, they're doing so good. And now they're in their 60s and they're like really doing good. And I'm happy for them. I'm like, thank God, it is possible. I actually know lots of survivors of abuse because of what I've done. And I mean, I've just know tons and tons. And these are people that are a good example for me, to hang in there because, it is hard. And they're honest too. They're like, they're honest. They're honest about their day. They're honest about what they're going through. But they're like, it is hard. We're going to run into those days that are just horrible. Days and nights that just, we're just like, oh man, it does happen. That's just life, right? For everybody. Everybody runs into that stuff, right? But we need to get some tools in our toolbox, like I always say. I heard that from somebody else and I thought it was great. Tools in our toolbox. We need some tools to work with that can help us to get through this stuff, right? That some healthy tools, right? So that's all. I'm just, a little bit on a bit of a, I don't know, a bit of a grump and a rant here today. But I have an ASCA training session today. So that's why I'm doing the show early. But I appreciate you being here. I've got Passaggio Olivello here. I've got Lou Nero here and others watching, and I appreciate it. Yeah, re-victimization. It is. Well, it's a real problem. And the thing is so many times, I know for myself in my own life, I really only talk about myself, I don't recognize a lot of that stuff. Those red flags don't come up for me. Where, anybody else who grew up or who had and developed healthy relationships throughout their life and haven't been abused and haven't had a lot of, when somebody toxic comes into their life, an abusive type person, red flags go up right away because they're like, that's not right. You know what I mean? For me, I'm so used to being around toxic, abusive people. I'm just like, well, it's just life. You know what I mean? So, hey, I'll get, whatever. I don't recognize those signs. So now I'm starting to get much better at it. Like I said, especially in the last, quite a few years now, because I went through, did a lot of work with, especially John Bradshaw's books, Healing the Shame That Binds You. And then the other one was Loving and Reclaiming Your Inner Child. It's Loving and Healing and Reclaiming Your Inner Child or something like that. It's the Inner Child book. But anyway, Homecoming. That's what it's called, Homecoming. I've got them on the shelf. I can see them. Those are some good books. And really, he does a lot of talking about boundaries in those books. And I also look online for boundary work. I found some great stuff out there. And boundary stuff is important so that you don't become re-victimized, right? Because if we don't know what to look for, we don't know what those signs are and the warning flags, then we need to learn what they are. You know what I mean? And those books are really good because they pointed out. I was like, oh, I had no idea what I was reading through those books and I was studying through them, doing the work. They're like little workbooks too. You can fill out the questions and answer the questions. And I was doing that work and I was like, wow, I had no idea I was doing that because I recognized it and I was like, what he was talking about. And I'm like, oh, I do that. Oh, I allow that in my life. And I'm like, well, no wonder I'm get re-victimized. It's because I don't recognize the flags, right? So it's getting better for me as I get older because I've got my boundaries pretty set. I always have to keep kind of working at it, but it's a lot better than it used to be. That's for sure. So, but yeah, you don't want to be re-victimized. This is the issue. And I talked about that on the last show. It's just such a huge issue for survivors. My mother went through that. She was an abuse survivor, married a man who abused her. Yeah. And then she thought, well, this is my whole life. Just stuck with this. And then she became very bitter, very angry and hateful and, sad. So at the end of her days, I saw her on her deathbed. She had a horrible life. Absolutely. But it didn't have to be that way. But she allowed it to be that way. And that's what I was like. I was determined, no, I'm not going to do that. I want to have a good life. I want to treat people well, but I also want them to treat me well. And, I knew all that, in my early 20s. It's just that I didn't do any real healing work on my abuse. until my 40s, until 42, until after that, because I didn't want to look at the abuse. I just didn't even want to deal with it. I actually didn't go around thinking I was an abuse survivor. I knew my parents were brought up on abuse charges, and I knew, it's not like I had denied the abuse. The issue is I just kind of thought, I'm tough. I can take it. No problem. No, I was abused, but I can deal with it because that's how I was in my teens and late teens, early 20s. It's just kind of like, oh, I'm tough. I can handle it. You know what I mean? So I went through that. Oh, well, just let it go. I didn't go around telling people I was an abuse survivor. And I didn't think of myself as one until the age of 42, because at that point I was going to commit suicide. And I realized, well, I had suicidal ideation almost, probably from like 10 years old, I would say, because I wanted to die from that point on. So I was always thinking about dying or getting killed somehow. Or then finally, when I got older, I was devising my own plans on how I would do this. And sitting, in my car at the edge of the Grand Canyon, just waiting to step on the gas. I was like, I just have to smash the gas pedal and I'm over. That's how close I was to committing suicide so many times, so many different ways. I'm not going to try to go into all of them. Kind of give people ideas. I don't want to do that. But the thing is, my brothers killed themselves, and it hurt me that they killed themselves because my parents won the battle, and I knew this. And when I was 42, for the last time, sitting on the couch wanting to kill myself, but in my life, I was pretty sure that I was going to do it. This was the last time because I thought I can't keep going through this. I sat there and I thought, who in their right mind sits around for 20-something years or 30-something years thinking about killing themselves? It's obvious I need help. You know what I mean? I started to get mad at myself, basically. I'm like, nobody's going to care if I kill myself. My abusers, they don't care. They're most of them dead. You know what I mean? And the thing is like, if I kill myself, I've just allowed my abusers to win the fight. And I was like, oh, I got mad. I was like, something came up inside of me. I was like, that's it. You know what I mean? Like, this has got to stop. And I'm like, the abusers, they don't get to win this fight. I'm going to win this fight. They're dead now. You know what I mean? They're all dead now. And the thing is like, I win because I stay alive and I'm doing the best I can, and I'm saying I'm having a good life because I am, because I don't allow anybody to abuse me. So I'm not being abused by anybody anymore. I've got shelter over my head today. I'm happy. You know what I mean? It may not be there for a long time, but that I can't worry about that stuff. You know what I mean? Can't sit around and worry about 6 months from now or a year from now or whatever, because life is short, and I'm getting up there. I only got so much time left, right? And so this is where it's kind of like, no, I'm living a good life. I'm not allowing people to abuse me. I've been off drugs for many years. You know what I mean? I'm trying to take care of myself. Not doing the greatest job. But the thing is like, I'm working at it. And I think that's what counts. It's kind of like, I'm doing what I can each day with the time that I have to actually enjoy life too, because I do, like I said, I play guitar. I practice guitar. I'm not really all that good yet. I'm working on it. But the thing is, I enjoy it. It's fun. And I'm also, like everybody knows, I'm a Christian, and I spend a lot of time in the Bible. That actually consumes most of my day. But then I have friends. I reach out to friends. I kind of count that as a good life. I've got a cat that I love very much. My cat, she's my baby. I just love her. She's so sweet. And, so yeah, nothing's perfect, right? There's nothing going to be perfect on this planet. Some people might think they've got it perfect, but they don't. It's a false reality. What it is kind of doing the best I can each day to say, you know what, I did the best I could. I really did. And try to be a positive influence for somebody. Just try to be a help to somebody. Somebody is having a hard day, reach out to them, my friends or whoever these people are, in my life. I actually know a lot of people because of what I do, and just give them some support, which makes me feel good, and then other people do that for me, and that makes me feel good too. It's just these simple little things, At the end of the day, I can say, I won, because my parents couldn't get me to kill myself. My abusers couldn't get me to kill myself. and they couldn't get me to have the rest of my life a horrible mess, right? Because that's what they wanted. That's what they were doing, and that's what they tried to do. That's what they managed to do, was to create this horrible mess. And it's like, I'm the one that wins, because I've got love in my heart. Like I said, I've got love for myself, love for life. And sometimes I still hate life. And I have to be honest. I try to be as honest as I can at the time when I'm on these shows, because I figure I may as well be. There's no sense in trying to fake it out. I'm just going to be honest, because, sometimes I hate life, because I hate evil. I hate evil people. And I really hate people who abuse people. And I know that they're going to go to the pits of hell, which really makes me happy. I'm like, yeah, I'm happy. Yeah, I really am. They're going to go to hell. And that makes me really glad. So the issue is I have some difficulties with some things. I really do. I don't love abusers, and I don't love abusive people. And so yeah, life's, it's not all about, it's not some sort of fairy fantasy fairy tale, right? Like, oh, look at the flowers and the birds, and I'm willing to look at the ugly crap. You know what I mean? Because I've been there. I know I've been there. I know what it's all about. The ugly evilness of what's going on in this world. And that's why I can be honest on these shows. I don't have to try to be somebody else. I'm just me. But the thing is I found love, real love. I found that I can actually say that most of the time I love life, and I really, I have a hard time dealing with things, but I work through them. I get through them, and with the help of some really good friends, just being there as a support system, and it's tough. It is very, very tough. Hi, Chelsea. I hope you're okay. Well, that's good. I'm glad that you're getting some help. And it was for me too. It was for me too. I had a lot of self-hatred, and it was. I kind of try to figure it out, because it's kind of like, well, I knew my parents hated me. I mean, it's obvious. My mom used to tell me that she hated me, so I knew that was true. But the issue is I hated myself, and it's because of the way that they made me feel. That I was worthless and should have been, shouldn't have been born, right? Shouldn't have made it, and that I was just, any number of things that my mom especially would tell me, that I was just stupid, and call me a lot of cuss words, which I won't even go into here on the show. And which made me then feel really bad about myself. I was like, yeah, my sister reiterated it. My older sister is 5.5 years older than me, because she was struggling herself, and she didn't have the capacity to be that older protective sister to me. We were all trying to avoid abuse, so I kind of don't blame her for what she did, really. It's just that she was having her own issues, you know what I mean? So then would kind of reiterate what my mom would say, that I was a loser. I was just going to end up like the brothers, just, lost and useless, and was never going to make it. So I kind of heard this throughout my whole life, and even, especially through my teens. And I developed a self-hatred for my body, mainly from the abuse and the child sexual abuse. I hated my body, because of the ugliness of what they had done to it. And then I never took care of myself, and I did a lot of drugs, and which then, fueled that whole hatred of my body thing. I don't know. It was very, very hard. I hated who I was as a person, and I had a lot of self-hate, a lot of problems with that. I did some shows on that if you're interested in looking at that. But I had to learn how to love myself, and that was some of the first stuff that I did on my healing journey. And I had to actually do, which people would think is just so stupid, self-affirmations, like, I do love myself, and say that all throughout the day. But I literally had to do that. because I hated myself. And that's why I was always wanting to commit suicide. It's not that I just wanted to commit suicide because what somebody else did to me. I hated myself. I hated my life. I hated the abuse. I hated what the abuse did to my body. I hated it all. I hated the memories of the abuse and the flashbacks. And, you know, I had a, I had to learn how to love myself, and it was took practice. Literally, I had to put sticky notes on my, like, all over the place. I had to put them on. I had little sticky notes, and I put them on the bathroom mirror because when I go get ready in the morning for work, because I was always working. This is the only time in my life I actually haven't worked this long. I've never had this much time off. It's like I don't know what to do with myself. I'm like, okay, I'm always working. Usually full time. And so while I was doing this healing journey stuff, mainly I was working full time. And I'd put sticky notes everywhere where I was going to be. In the morning in the bathroom mirror, stuff like that. I do count. I do matter. I do love myself. Things like this. And I would read them when I went in there. And I'd say them. I'd be like, I do count. I do matter. I love myself. Okay. But I didn't believe it, but I would say it, see? And I would just keep doing that. And I would do that day after day after day. And reading the books, like I said, John Bradshaw's books were helpful for me. They're the two that I used that I thought were really helpful. Because I read them like cover to cover and did the work in them and wrote the question, did the workbook stuff. Robert Burney was another one that was really good. Robert Burney, The Dance of Wounded Souls, looking at codependency and stuff like that. I just like what he had to say about a lot of stuff. And it is a lot of work. It is, and it's not something that happens overnight. I don't think. Maybe for some people, there may be somebody out there who, just doesn't struggle with this stuff. But for me, it was a big problem, and I had to learn how to love myself. And also body image, it's kind of like I had to learn how to love myself now as an older woman. You know what I mean? I've had to kind of go through all this stuff over again, aging, you know what I mean? Because I'm 55, getting older, I don't have the body that I used to have, which wasn't all that great in the first place, but it was a lot better than it is now. And the thing is now I've got the aging thing going on. It's what I've really learned how to do, which is very true, and I really have done it, is I've learned how to love myself. It's an amazing thing. It really is. And I'll tell you what kind of really helped was this program that I went in and did inner child work, which I didn't trust that inner child work because, I didn't really believe in that stuff. But when I started doing the program, I realized like, oh, wow, seriously, I've got so many inner children that are so messed up that are running my adult life. That's the issue. That's the problem. They were, some of them were such self-loathing. That was me, just from so many years ago, 10 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old, self-loathing because of the abuse and the sexual abuse. I had to go back and actually reparent myself, you know what I mean? Which really did help. But the thing is now, sitting here today, I can be honest and I can say, you know what? I've learned to love myself. Absolutely. And, it doesn't, it's not like I've arrived and I'm just like perfect. The issue is I'm always working on something. But I've just learned to love and embrace myself at the moment where I'm at. Kind of like, yeah, I'm a work in progress. I could be doing things better, a lot of things better. But I don't care about that because I truly do love myself. And, in doing that, that opens up my heart to love others. Because, if we don't love ourselves, how are we going to be able to share that love? You know what I mean? I wanted that because I didn't have love. I didn't get any real love as a child. I didn't get any love from my parents, and I didn't get any appropriate love whatsoever as a child. So I just got hate. So that's what I'm saying. I just took that on. That was my life, I couldn't really help it. It really wasn't my fault. I started out a loving child, I believe, because I remember having some memories of being like, 4 years old, 3, 4 years old, watching the sunlight coming in through the window and all the dust in the air, making those little filtery little dots in the air. Because when you're young, your eyes are really, really good. And I could see all that stuff, and I was like, oh. And I was just filled with love at that point. But I still had a lot of fear because of the abuse that was going on in the home. And they hadn't crushed my spirit at that point. But once my spirit was crushed, and they actually did, I call it soul murder. They killed me. They killed my spirit. They killed my soul. And at that point, that's when hatred took over, and I hated life. I hated myself. I hated everything. You know? And so that hatred almost destroyed me until the age of 42. Um, that's why I really wish I would have reached out and got help a long time ago. You know, that's the issue. I mean, I wish I would have reached out at the age of 18. You know what I mean? Especially, right around there, becoming an adult and can move on with my life and leave my abusers behind. But I didn't do that. See, and I never got any help like at all until after the age of 42. Right. So I really wish I would have done that a lot sooner. But then I found out it's actually not uncommon. Many people reach out in their 50s and 60s. That's the first time they reach out. So it's not necessarily uncommon that people will wait to a much older age. And I think sometimes they said it's really for a reason. It's because the brain finally matures to a certain point where you're actually allowed. It allows you to deal with stuff, right? Because when you're younger, it can be I think a little harder. Now that I'm older, I'm much more mellow. I'm a lot more mellow than I used to be. you know, I'm mellowed out now. I'm an old lady. I'm like 55. You should have seen me when I was younger. You'd be like, I don't really like that chick, man, because I was kind of a mess. But the thing is now I'm older. I'm like, oh, well. And my brain just matured enough, I think, so that I can handle this. And there's a question, do I still have flashbacks? Actually, I mean, I do. And I actually had some this last couple of days. Like I was saying, I was kind of triggered this last couple of days and down because of my husband passing away and stuff. We have a lot of things going on. I do have flashbacks, but they're not obtrusive to the point where I don't even know if I want to call them flashbacks anymore. I used to have flashbacks, and which would cause me a lot of distress, especially at work. I'm sitting there at work at the desk, and all of a sudden these flashbacks would come, and I'd have to calm myself down, try to deal with this at work and stuff. And it's a little difficult for sure. I don't know if they're flashbacks now. They're more just memories, and they're not even obtrusive. They don't like hang around and cause me any distress anymore. I think it's because I've dealt with most of my stuff. I would say almost all of my stuff. I'm still dealing with some. I need to do some work on the CSA child sexual abuse stuff for sure. But the thing is I do still have the memories, and they will come different times. I'll see, for instance, just for my example, I'll be looking because I'm a cook and I love to cook. I used to cook for a living, and I've done office work and all that stuff too. But I actually went to cooking school, and because I love to cook, because I love to eat, as you can tell, I'm always a little on the heavy side. And I try not to put on too much weight because my body won't hold it because I've got a lot of injuries. But the thing is I really enjoy good food, and I like to cook. I like to cook for other people, so that's why I want to go cooking in the kitchens. And I'll see a rolling pin. And a rolling pin, if I see a rolling pin, the very first thought that comes to my mind is my mom bashing my head in with that rolling pin, and beating my back. So I do, it's those memories that come. I'll see something, and all of a sudden I'm right back there, see something on a video, in a music video, or see just anything that kind of relates to what I've been through. It does cause some memories to come back. They're not as bad as they used to be. Like, I've dealt with a lot of stuff, so I don't have such a miserable day or whatever after seeing something like that. I actually got rid of my rolling pins because I used to have some, because I used to like to make pies and stuff. But when I started my healing journey, I threw them out. I threw all that kind of stuff out that my mom used for implements to beat me with, because I'm like, I don't want that. I don't want that around me. I don't want that reminder around me. So I'll find something else to roll pie crust out. I'll just use my hands. It's like, so, I see certain things like that, and it does trigger me for sure. The things that people will say sometimes. I see stuff on a movie, just any number of things. It's hard. It is hard. But I don't get I don't have such a bad time all the time. Like, I used to struggle with this stuff, and because I've done a lot of work and kind of know, like I said, I got tools in my toolbox. So I sort of have sort of integrated into my life things that I know that'll take me out of the past, put me in the present. So that's kind of like grounding work, which for flashbacks and stuff like that and triggers flashbacks, grounding work's really important. And we need to be able to be in the present. We're not living in the past anymore. That abuse is gone. It's my memories. As painful as it is, it's just memories. And I'm not being abused now. So then I have to do the grounding work and I have to say, okay, I'm sitting in this chair. I can feel my feet on the floor. I can hear the sound of the fan over there blowing, just ground myself, bring myself back into the present. That's what I used to have to do, especially at work, because I'd have, I guess they call them obtrusive flashbacks, where I really almost wasn't, it was almost like dissociative, you know what I mean? Like I wasn't no longer at work, I was being abused, right? So things are getting better for me, definitely, over the last few years. But I've learned a lot of stuff just from reading and studying this stuff out. And I mean, it took hours and hours. Like I said, I did all this work over a 10-year period. And, it's because I was working full time. So I was working full time and looking after my husband who was terminally ill. So I had minimal time. And I'd have time in the morning, time in the afternoon. I was doing shows like on Blog Talk Radio, the One Child Abuse Survivor to Another and stuff. And that really was my healing journey, because I would be reading the material in the morning, going over it. And then at night, when I got off work and came home, had supper, and spend some time with my honey, and then I'd have some time for myself in the evening. I'd sit down and do that work, and I'd actually go back over that material, write the questions out, and do the work, and and then kind of read some more about it, right? Whatever the issues were. So that was my healing journey, and I had to do it on my time off because, like I said, I was working full time and busy, and so it did take me longer than it may have taken somebody else. If I'd have gone into therapy or whatever, that might have helped. But I didn't trust the therapist. And well, thank you, Pingu Penguin. Well, I appreciate that. I do. That's the issue. There was no sense in trying to come on and pretend I'm somebody else, because I'm just me. I can't really pretend. And I just wanted to be a support for people, for sure. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Well, and I have made a lot of progress, like I said, but I'm honest. I do have days where, like everybody else, things aren't so great, and I'll be triggered by something, or I'm just down. I do, I have suffered with depression probably my whole life. I'm sure of it. But I can pull myself out of it, and I found ways that I have to actually do it. That's why I kind of do these shows, because I'm like, whatever works for you, right? You have to find things that work for you. For me, it's guitar and music. I love music and I love guitar, and I also do things like, for instance, I love to read, like I said. So I'll read a favorite book, or I'll watch a favorite movie, just to make sure that I'm not just spending all my time thinking about my past. I actually don't do that. I don't sit all day and think about my past. I used to. Before the age of 42, I would have these depressive pits, which would then cause me to be suicidal, because I'd be fine and I would be stuffing the abuse. I'd be pushing it down, working. I was a sous chef just the year before that. I was working like 12-hour days, having a great time being a sous chef, making the best money I've ever made in my lifetime. I've never made that money since or before. It was really good money to be an assistant kitchen manager, which was my title was sous chef. To be able to make it to the sous chef for me was like a dream come true. I went to cooking school, but I didn't get my red seal. And so I just needed a baking course to get the red seal, but my brother had committed suicide like the year before I actually took time off, because my mom fell and broke her hip. That's all in my book if you want to read it. But the issue is I didn't go. I went back to school, but I didn't finish because I didn't actually have enough money to do this anymore. I needed a baking course and to get my red seal, and I didn't do it. In the meantime, I had my the cooking thing. To be a certified chef, you have to have a chef sign off on all your work that you're doing, and it's this big, huge binder, like that big. Seriously, that many papers. It's like a 4-year program or something, and you have to have chefs that will sign off. And none of the chefs I was working for would sign off my work. This was years ago, like when I was 25, 26 years old. So They wouldn't. They weren't interested in helping me. The ACF, the American Cooking Federation, or whatever it's called. So I just, like whatever. I blew that off. But anyway, so I got to be a sous chef, which was great. It was a dream come true, and I wasn't thinking about the abuse so much. You know what I mean? I didn't. I just stuffed it, right? But then something would happen. For instance, my husband's health was a big issue, and all of a sudden I'd be down, and I'd be all of a sudden then feeling sorry for myself, and oh well, life sucks. And at the age of like 41, my friend dumped me. Well, my best friend actually just dumped me and really hurt me, but dumped me after. And then I was suicidal. So, you know, I have had periods of my life where, depression was a huge problem. And so for me now, I know the signs, what to look for. And like what I'm doing, if all of a sudden I can't function, I'm letting too many things go. I'm not even bothering to take out the trash. I do feed my cat. She's my baby. My cat is very looked after very well because I love her. She's the only baby that I'll have now because I'm not going to get any more pets now because I'm getting too old. Um, and she's so sweet. Like I just love her. So she's the last cat that I'll ever have, and I try to spoil her as much as I possibly can. And so I always look after her. But I'm talking about stuff like, things that need to get done. I got to go and take care of something. I got to go to the store. And all of a sudden I'm in a depressive funk. Nothing's getting done. And I can see stuff piling up. And I'm like, okay, all I'm doing is sitting around in a pit, sort of. And I'll pull myself out of it. I don't allow myself to stay there. So I'm, you know, thankful that I'm able to do that now because before I was suicidal, like I'm saying. So I've learned how to do a lot of this stuff. It took a long time, like I said, longer than hopefully it would take most people, right? I would hope that it wouldn't take you 10 years. But the thing is that we can always learn something about ourselves, you know. So even if we're not on our healing journey, we can always still learn stuff about ourselves, and have a try to have a good life, right? It is hard. And I'm sorry, Cynthia. I'm sorry for your loss. That's so hard to be dealing with. Hi, Shannon. I hope you're okay. And at least like I said, I know how hard it is for people, and like I can't do much. Like I said, I can't do much for anybody. I can't even hardly help myself. And the issue, so I just do these videos because I'm like, hey, if I can just be one voice of encouragement for people to hang in there, then that makes me feel good because at least I'm like, well, at least I tried, right? That's at the end of the day, that's all we can do, right? So in your own situation, you take care of yourself, you be your own best advocate and find out what you need. And yeah, Shannon, I'm so sorry about that. And I know you had mentioned that before, and my heart just goes out to you. I can't even imagine, the grief that you're going through, right? And this what I'm saying, it's so hard. These things are never easy. When you lose somebody that you love, and it doesn't, the situations are all different, you know what I mean? But it is so hard, especially your daughter being so young, 24, that's young. And I am so sorry. And I'll send you a hug right now. I'll just give you a virtual hug. Oh, and hugs. I'm so sorry. Grief is a huge thing for me. I had a lot of grief work to do, grieving a lot of people. It's really just one day at a time. It really is. That's kind of what I'm doing with my husband now. That's why I came on early this morning because I had some things I have to do later. And I thought, I may as well just come on today and I'll talk about what a horrible couple of days that I've had actually. Yesterday was one where I was grieving my husband. And grief, it just comes and goes. And I think, it takes as long as it takes. So many times people don't know what to say, and people in our lives, and they'll say stuff like, oh, can't you just move on? You're going to have to let it go. And it's like, I think they mean it in a good way. See, that's what I'm saying. They're not necessarily saying it to be mean or just to be hurtful. Most people actually do want to be that support, and they will say things like that because they want you to feel better and they really want you to be better. I mean, I know that not everybody's comments are derogatory. Some people will post things or tell people stuff like that because they care. And we don't know how much they care, but if we could talk to them, they'd probably say, "That's right, I do care." See, and grief takes as long as it takes. It's really one day at a time. When my husband passed away, I got a book from the funeral home. The guy gave it to me for free. I guess maybe it was included in costs or whatever. I'm sure they didn't eat the. I don't know. I probably paid for that book, but it doesn't matter because I wouldn't have searched it out anyway. And it was a book. It's called Grief, One Day at a Time or something. And it's a whole calendar year, 365 days of looking at grief and the reality of grief, which I appreciated because it was honest. And it wasn't like, life will be better, it'll all be roses, trying to make you feel better when all that's doing is making you feel a whole hell of a lot worse. You know what I mean? It's like, no, you know what I decided when my husband passed away, and I don't, everybody's different, like I said, but I decided that I was going to go ahead and just cry. And I was going to just allow myself to have bad days. And I was going to go ahead and allow myself to just grieve, And I did that one Grief One Day at a Time book. And it's been 2.5 years now. This August will be 3 years that he passed away. But grief work, then yes, like I said, yesterday, all I did was spend the day crying, basically, because I was missing my husband. So I was doing some more grief work. So. But if I would have just shoved it down and said, oh, I need to stop behaving like this, he's been gone 2.5 years, and I'm just going to have to, get over this and move on. And no, I just allowed myself to cry. And I just allowed myself to have kind of a bad day, pity party thing. And I didn't try to self-comfort or self-soothe. I sat here in my misery and complaining to myself, how horrible this is, because I miss him. He's my best friend, he's the love of my life, And so, yeah, I mean, grief is what it is. I think it's, it's so hard. That's all I can say. And it's kind of part of life. Like, we know people around us are gonna go. But if it's something that's like tragic or, situations like that, I know grief is almost seems impossible to get through. I would like to say we have to hang on, right? Because I'm still grieving my husband. And, it's not going to be better for a long time. That's what I knew. I knew this when my husband passed away, because I had done grief work for my childhood stuff. I'd done the steps for grieving my lost childhood, being abused. So I already had an idea what the grief work was going to be for when my husband would pass away, because I was pretty sure he was going for me because he was terminally ill. And they said he only had 2 to 5 years to live, 2 to 5 years, but he lived 17 years past the diagnosis. So what I did was I just realized that life wasn't going to be good for a while. And it literally wasn't. Like, when he passed away August 2019 or 2018, that whole winter, all I did was cry. Like August, September, October, November, December, January. And I would have periods of the day where I wasn't crying, and I would be like, okay, I can do this. This really sucks, but I can do this. I'm tough. I can deal with it, And then I'd find myself crying again, crying all night, crying all day. And I mean, I seriously cried for about a year until summer of 2019. Then I started getting busy. And I'm like, well, I just need to do life. And, I had left quit one job because the boss was toxic and abusive and rude. And if I had a video camera, I could have taken her to court and got her busted. But unfortunately, I didn't. There was no witnesses, so I couldn't prove it. Too bad. I should have videotaped her anyway. But anyway, oh well. So the issue is, I knew it was going to be bad. I knew it was going to be hard. There was no faking it out. No saying, oh, it'll be better. It'll be better tomorrow. I'll be better. Like, no, this is stuff that takes time. It really takes a lot of time. And basically what it is, it's not grieving the loss of somebody. It's learning how to live without that person. whoever they are. So many people lose people all the time, right? It's learning how to adjust our lives to live without them because they're not in it anymore. This is very, very hard. You know what I mean? So, um, well, and I think, hey, I was suicidal too for many years. The issue is I think that you have to wonder what those who we've lost would think if we committed suicide because they were lost. See, I thought about this because two of my siblings committed suicide, my brothers, and you know I was devastated. Even though one of them abused me sexually, I was still devastated. Not at the time when he committed suicide because I didn't care about him, like I said in my video, because he abused me sexually, and I was like, I don't care about him. But see, later as an adult, that other, I would say, more compassionate part of myself was like, no, I did care. And I didn't want my brothers, let's just put them in a group, brothers, to kill themselves. And it hurt terribly bad when they killed themselves. So I would get to these suicidal points and I would be like, well, what's this going to do to my husband who loves me? He's never going to understand if I kill myself. He's going to be like, wow, I tried to be a good husband to her. I tried to help her. I tried to have a good life with her and try to make her feel good and, loved and wanted, and wasn't it enough? This stuff would enter my mind. And I'd be like, no, I'd get to the point where I'd be like, I can't do it, and then I'd get to another point where I was going to. So the issue is what I had to learn was that, we, I sit there and I think about, like, for instance, for your situation, Shannon, like your daughter, would she want you to kill yourself because she's gone? See, like my friend, one of my good friends was killed, by a drunk driver. And he wasn't really over the limit, but he had been drinking. And she was hit and dragged by the car and killed. And she was 17, and it was prom night. And I was devastated by that, absolutely devastated, because she was really the only one who would ever tell me nice things. Like, she would tell me she loved me. We were like best buddies since we were like 4, since we were old enough to kind of know that we had friends. You know what I mean? It's kind of like my little friend. We were best friends, and she was the only one that would kind of say nice things to me and actually touch me nice. Like, I was so used to being battered and beaten at home, and my little friend would be so nice, and she'd rub my arm, things like this, and I trusted her, so I let her do it, and she'd be like, I love you. She was just so sweet, like, all through our lives. And then when she was 17, she was killed by a drunk driver. And I was lost after that. Because I was like, the one person that loves me, is gone. And I mean, these relationships that we have, these ones that are so important to us. I thought about it, and I thought, would my friend want me to kill myself? Because I was suicidal after that too, right? And I was like, my friend wouldn't want me to kill myself, you know? And so the issue is almost somebody else's opinion has to matter more than our own. Now, looking back at the age of 42, which was the last time I was suicidal, was because I knew that if I gave up, then my abusers won. For me, that's what made sense. I was like, if I kill myself, my abusers win. So I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to stay alive and I'm going to have a good life. I think we, like in that grief book, that Grief One Day at a Time, it said, we honor our loved ones and their memories by staying alive and by having a good life. Our loved ones who have passed on, who have been killed, who have taken their own lives, or whatever the situation was, who died of natural causes, they would want us to have a good life. We need to honor them by doing that. Because I believe that eternity goes on. even before I was a Christian, I believed that, that life does go on when we leave here. I was feeling very lost, so I thought I was going to be lost for eternity out amongst the stars, just floating around by myself because I was lost on the earth. And I thought, I'll just be lost out in space, apart from God, apart from life, eternal death sort of thing. And then at the age of 42, I was like, something just told me, live, got to do this. And you can do this. I just, something just hit me and I was like, I have to live. But what that book said was really awesome. That Grief One Day at a Time book, which you can buy online. I think, the Grief Center, there's if you search out the grieving center for grieving, you just look up Grief One Day at a Time or something, 365 days of grief work. And this book did say that. It said, we need to honor our loved ones that have passed on, and no matter how they passed on. Like one of my brothers was killed, murdered, and terrible stuff. One of my best friends was killed, murdered. Actually, two of them were murdered. And I mean, we need to honor them and honor their memory by keeping going. And it's not going to be perfect. You know what I mean? It's going to be sometimes not looking good. We're going to have bad days, hard days. And I think that's why it's so important to have a support network. Join a group of people online, whatever, telephone support, that we can talk to that understand this stuff. So that I'm glad you're here with me. It helps me out. You know what I mean? You help me out because your supportive, kind comments to me and the love that I feel from you helps me out. So I would hope that the love that I have for you and what I'm saying helps you out. It's just so important because life's hard, man. And there's times where it doesn't seem like it's doable, but it is. And we have to keep going. And that's when my husband, just before he passed away, because he knew he was dying. And I mean, we both did. And we had time to actually, like I said, more prepared than most people because we actually knew this was coming. And he said, I don't know what you're going to do. Because he knew how much I loved him. And he knew actually how much he loved me. And he knew he knew about my life, right? He read my books. he knew the whole thing about the abuse. He saw my body. And the issue is he was like, I don't know what you're going to do. When I go, and I'm like, I'm going to have to keep going because he was thinking I might kill myself. See? And because he knew I struggled with that. And I was like, I said, no, I'm going to keep going, hon. I'm going to keep going until I just don't go anymore, until my body just doesn't go. I'm not taking my life. I'm going to do good, and I'm going to just keep going. And he was like, and I said, and then when I do go, I'll meet you there. He's like, well, I'll be waiting for you. He was such a sweet man. Oh, such a sweet man. I've been so blessed to be able to know real love. So many people never get that opportunity, right? And that's why, I don't want to give up. I want to keep going. And it's going to be hard. Like I said, it's going to be hard. And some days are going to be really horrible. That's all there's to it. Because that's life on this planet. I mean, we can't get away from that. Some days are going to suck. And it's going to be hard. But that's what I'm saying. Those days, because I do have those days. We all do. I think everybody on the planet does at some point. Just you have to realize that it's okay to have that bad day, but it's not okay to stay there. We can allow ourselves to feel this stuff, even if it's a couple of bad days, whatever. But then we need to get up and do the work and keep going. And then what we find that we can trust that, and we make one more step. We might have a setback, but then we're like, that's okay. I got through the last one. I'm just going to keep going. So that's what we're all doing. Some people are just pretending that they're not doing that, but that's basically all we're doing. And we can learn how to help ourselves. You know, in other words, like having those tools in the toolbox to find things that can help us. And that's why I'm saying it's so important to reach out, right? Or, you know, or even self-help stuff. You know, find those books that work for you, the things that actually make sense to you, make sense to your mind. Because, you know, what works for me, like I said, doesn't work for everybody. It's finding that stuff that works for you and means and actually makes sense to you, so that you can use it as a tool. So the next time you have a bad day, you can remember, you know, what it is that pulls you out of that. You know what I mean? And gets us to the next day. Because that's basically all we can do, one day at a time. That's why I like that grief book, One Day at a Time. It is really only one day at a time. That's all we can do, right? And that's a good question, Stephanie. Um, you know, how did I learn to trust enough to have a marriage? Well, that's the issue. I mean, I wrote about that in my book, and I did tell about that on my videos and stuff. I didn't trust anybody, and I didn't trust my husband at all when I first met him. I thought he was going to abuse me. I thought it would eventually end up abusive, because I thought if he was upset or grumpy, it was going to turn to blows, because that's how I grew up. You know, if my mom raised her voice, there was generally some physical abuse involved in there. My dad, if the two of them were always abusing each other as well. So I kind of thought, you know, that's just how my initial reaction was, you know, he's going to hurt me, you know, and I didn't trust him, but I loved him and I fell in love with him, and we both fell in love, and we were both willing to give it a try. I actually left him after a year, and we left on good terms. I just told him, I said, you know, you weren't here for me because I lost the baby. I was pregnant. I lost the baby because, I knew I had been told that I couldn't carry a child. It's just that I did get pregnant, which was a miracle. And I didn't think I could get pregnancy because of the CSA, child sexual abuse. So they said, you probably won't be able to carry it, right? So don't freak out if you lose this baby, right? So I wasn't surprised that I lost the baby, but I was angry because my husband wasn't there, but that's because he was working up north, like 2,000 miles north. And he couldn't get a helicopter out, you know, it would cost like $13,000 or something to have some sort of emergency evacuation. So he was like, don't go. And I'm like, if you're not here in 4 hours, I'm gone, because that's my nature seal. Push away, run. That's what I always do. That's growing up abused, right? I did write books, and they are the one that I'm talking about is A Life of Death and Redemption, and that's kind of just a general about the abuse in my life. And those books are available. You can buy them, but if you want to read them for free, if you don't have the money, because I don't keep the money for my books, I donate the money, and I don't, you know, it's not about the money. You can read them for free from my website if you want to. You can download it, and it's on my website. So, but I donate all the monies from my books, so, because I don't want the money. It was not about money. So I've had people tell me, oh, you just wrote your story for money. I'm like, no, because I donate the money. I don't want the money. So even if, you know, somebody comes, you know, to offer me a contract or something for big money for something, I'd be like, I don't want the money. I don't want the money from that stuff. You know what I'm saying? To me, that's an insult to say that I wrote those books for money. I wrote that like I said earlier, everything that I've done is basically for two reasons: mainly to help survivors of abuse, and also to help child abuse to not be swept under the carpet. Because it's always, if we all shut up, it'll just be swept under the carpet again. If we don't keep making noise, because this all has to do with child rights. I don't know, most people don't think about that, but child abuse is illegal. It's a criminal activity, and it's that children have rights. They have the right to not be abused. See, so every time somebody abuses a child, they're taking away those child rights. And children have rights. All humans have rights. And so if we don't speak about this stuff, it just gets swept under the carpet. Nobody cares. You know what I mean? So this is why I do what I do. But the issue is, you know, so many of us, like, I know there's so many of us out here. And I just thought, you know, if I could just, you know, be the tiniest amount of encouraging to somebody who's having a hard time, that would make me happy, you know. So that's why I do these. And I like I said, I don't know how long. None of us know how long we have. But I'm 55. I'm getting older. I never thought I'd live to be this age in the first place. Right? So, you know, I'm not really expecting longevity, to be honest with you. So if it happens, it'll be like a miracle. So I figure I got to do what I can with the time that I have. Now I got an issue where I don't even know how long I'll have the internet because I got no job. Things are just, because of COVID-19, it's such a huge issue. Anyway, I'll put the link in there. It's www.author Laurie Smith. I'm mumbling. I'm getting over that cold. LaurieAnnSmith.weebly.com. You can go there. It's under the writings tab. So if you go to my website and you look under the writings tab, my books are all there as PDF links, and you're welcome to download them. I put a disclaimer, so anybody who actually downloads those is when they download, they're actually saying that they are 18 and over, and because they're not for children. Now the teen book is, that's fine, like Levita Juvies. I wrote that I actually changed the names in that book, but that's all true. I just changed the names to protect my friends, and so I changed mine in there too. But anybody reading my story would know who's who. Like they would know who I am in the story. And the other books are all written just truthfully. One is like a journal, one child abuse survivor to another. The journey, that's about the CSA child sexual abuse that I suffered. And also what it is just when I started to work through that stuff, I started to journal at that point, and that's the book. But the thing is it's disturbing, and it's highly graphic sexual material, not for children. The reason I was honest in that is because I'm really tired of people just sugarcoating abuse. And sometimes when you tell somebody, anything about CSA child sexual abuse, they don't even understand what that is. They don't realize what that is. So when you say, child rape, they can't even imagine. They don't even. They're like, oh, can't you just get over it? It's no big deal. You know what I mean? It's like, it's no big deal. It's like, it's no big deal. I've had people tell me that. I'm like, who are you? You know what I mean? Like, are you an abuser? You'd have to be an abuser to say something like that. Child sexual abuse, I mean, it's horrific. So this is why I'm just brutally honest in my books. And that's why I publish. Now they're published under Northern Books, and the profits are going to be going to Advocates United for Humanity, because we actually fund programs to help prevent and stop child abuse. I volunteer with them, but that's where the money is going to go to help fund programs. So it's not going in anybody's pockets. It's going directly into the funding for the programs, and that makes me happy because I like to think that the abuse that I suffered, that something good can come out of it. That's why I'm glad to do that, right? Thank you. I appreciate that very much. And I appreciate all of your support. And, I just thought it is hard to watch my stuff. And I know that. That's why I kind of put warnings on. I talk about it first before, I start the show, because I'm like, if you're so sensitive to the subject, because I want to warn people that I'm just being honest and real about all of it. You know what I mean? And it is hard to watch. I watch other survivor stuff too, and so I know how it is because I'm watching and my heart's just crushed, and I'm like, oh my god, you know what I mean? Like what you went through, right? Or I'll hear a survivor story, or I'll interview a survivor of abuse. I've done quite a few interviews, with other survivors, right? And it just breaks your heart, you know what I mean? And some of it you just can't even imagine. Your mind just can't even. You're just like, oh my god, how could somebody do that to a child? How could somebody do that to you? Right? So I appreciate your support and your comments and the love that I feel coming from you. I really do, because I know it's real. And we've been on for an hour and a half, so I'm going to go ahead and close this up today. But I just wish you all the best. I'm serious. I hope you can get through today. I really do, because none of us deserve to suffer any more than we already have. Seriously. You know what I mean? None of us deserve to be treated any more horribly than we've already been treated. And so, in other words, then we need to be good to ourselves. It's like what I was trying to do, and I know what I was trying to do with the suicidal ideation stuff, because I had quite often been like self-injuring and stuff like this, just hurting myself, allowing myself to be hurt, falling off of mountainsides, wrecking my cars, hurting myself, right? Was because I was trying to finish up what my parents had started and my brother. So basically, they didn't quite destroy me enough. So basically, I was doing it. I was finishing the job, right? And at the age of 42, still wanted to end my life, because of the pain that I was in. And I was like, enough is enough. I do not deserve to be treated that way. And so I don't. I then need to treat myself well. I got to stop abusing myself and trying to kill myself. You know what I mean? So this is the issue, and that's why. I mean, my heart goes out to any of you who are struggling. I know we all struggle with things at all of you. I mean, we all struggle with things, right? And so my heart goes out to you. And like I always say, reach out. If you have a day where you just don't even know how you're going to do it, and you can't find somebody to call, and you can't get a hold of anybody, call a crisis line. I wanted to be a crisis line volunteer. The thing, because my husband was passing away, I actually wanted to apply, but they said no, because if your husband's terminally ill and he's going to pass away, it's going to be too much for you to be dealing with, right? And I'm like, well, I guess you got a good valid point, because I seriously thought I could handle it. I'm like, I know I could do it. And they were like, not a good idea, not for you, right? It's great that you want to help people, but you're going to need help when your husband passes away. So it's just so important that you reach out to somebody. And like NASCA, I don't volunteer with them anymore, but I did for quite a few years. National Association of Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, NASCA. They have people, 60, 70 people there that are survivors of abuse. I actually know a lot of them because they're my friends. They have telephone numbers there that you can call. And what you do is, if you can't reach one, you just keep calling through the list until you get one. And they'll talk to you. They'll try to help you find resources. They'll just be an ear, because they were abused. They know how hard it is, right? That's one good group to do that with. And then there's just other support lines out there, plenty of them, right? So make sure that you do stick it out, because I want to see if you're back here again next week, right? Because I'm going to be here. I'm doing it. I don't care. And it doesn't matter to me how hard the day gets or how hard the night gets. I've been through plenty of hard days and hard nights, just like everybody else. And I can do this. I can hang on. I can just go ahead and get my box Kleenex or my roll of toilet paper. I don't have Kleenex. I just got toilet paper. I can get my toilet paper and I can just cry. And I can get a little angry. That's fine, but I'm not going to hurt myself, and I'm not going to hurt somebody else. And I'm going to stick it out. That's what I want you to do too. Because like every single time that we wake up every single day is a slap in our abuser's face. That's right. Because I'm still here, and so are you. So have a wonderful day, everybody. Take really good care of yourselves. Do some self-soothing stuff. Be good to yourself. Breathing work is really important, and I actually do work on that, because I don't breathe half the time. So breathing work, just meditative type stuff, whatever works for you. Find some of those things to help you get through, and and stay with me till the next time. Bye, everybody.